I do see an ominous trend because recently at a farmer's market, a farmer who was selling washed bagged lettuce was cited and given a ticket. And they said this is a processed food.
They're actually going onto the farm and telling farmers how to grow things. So if there's a leafy greens problem because a huge processing plant is bagging leafy greens and shipping it all over the country, all of a sudden your local farmer who's growing leafy greens for their CSA or growing leafy greens for the farmer's market are going to be subject to growing and harvesting standards created by federal bureaucrats who frankly get all of their information just about from large industrial conventional agriculture.
One of the problems that small farmers have is expense. There isn't a lot of government infrastructure that supports how hard it is to be a small farm. And that's something that perhaps has always been true, but increasingly since the 50s, we've watched it really eat away at a lot of the land that we have. It's being very well curated by small farmers and organic farmers.
As farms like ours resonate with patrons who are yearning in their soul and their bodies are craving for real food, and they eat this food and realize, wow, this is actually food that I can pronounce what's on the label and that I can actually make in my kitchen. You know, that's a pretty amazing thing that now 95% of what Americans eat you can't pronounce and you can't make it in your kitchen.
Real food like butter, like real milk, like eggs have been made the devil in the world of food, to the point where people are afraid to eat real food. And unfortunately, the result of that is 72% of the country is obese or overweight. We have heart disease, cancer, and diabetes rates at all-time highs. And every year, it's getting worse.
We should be able to eat and drink whatever we choose to and feed that to our family. I believe that just as you can buy raw meat and choose to eat it raw, which many people do, or you have a warning label and you can cook it. I don't understand why we can't buy raw dairy products and either choose to boil them ourselves or choose not to. Although I do understand why, because if that was the case, then the agricultural system would have to start producing real food instead of contributing to the problem.
If you look at the statistics between 1970 and now, the U.S. has lost 88% of its dairy farms.
More than any other single food, raw milk is what draws the consumer to the farm. Once they get there, they might buy meat, poultry, produce, but raw milk is what initially causes them to set food on the farm.
You know, there's a urban legend going around about raw milk is not good for you, it's dangerous. You know, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for raw milk, because all of my ancestors had nothing but raw milk.
Raw milk used to be an American staple, but once the pasteurization process came into being, everybody sort of switched over to that. Now raw milk is seen as something that's new.
You can get sick from any food, but raw milk is inherently safe. There are dozens of components in raw milk that kill pathogens and at the same time strengthen your own immune system. These are in the milk, and a lot of them are in the fats in the milk. That's why we always say drink whole milk. Don't drink skim milk, but drink whole milk. Much, much safer to drink whole milk, raw or pasteurized.
Raw milk does prevent illnesses. In particular, it prevents asthma exacerbations, eczema exacerbations, allergic rhinitis exacerbations, and it does so by stabilizing that mast cell or allergy cell and preventing it from releasing the histamine.
So why is so much of our milk pasteurized? In the mid-1800s, children became sick and died after drinking milk from swill dairies. The rotten milk came from cows crowded into filthy stables built next to beer and whiskey distilleries. The cows were fed spent grain from the distilleries rather than grass, and the blue-colored milk they produced was enriched with flour and chalk to make it appear fresh. It wasn't fresh. It was deadly. The outlawing of swill dairies, the advent of refrigeration, and the certified clean raw milk movement made milk safe again. Around this time, it was also discovered that pasteurization killed bacteria in milk. Pasteurized milk and clean raw milk were produced and sold side by side until the 1930s, when milk production became more industrialized. And state governments supported the move towards pasteurization and passed laws making it harder to get raw milk. Over time, consumers accepted this move to pasteurized milk, and the health benefits of fresh, raw milk were largely forgotten. Even though raw milk's health benefits are widely accepted as scientifically proven, state and federal health officials warn that it is too dangerous to drink.
I became a raw milk activist because raw milk was banned in my state. I live in Maryland, and initially, when we first started drinking fresh milk, we participated in a cow share program. Now, a cow share is very similar to a timeshare, where families will go in together on a cow and then get the milk from their own animal. And that was legal in Maryland when we first started drinking, but then the health department changed the regulations to ban that. That really upset me, because here I am trying to feed my children as healthfully as I can, and the health department is completely undermining my authority as a parent, all my research, and saying, you don't know what you're doing, and you can't give this to your family. Now, I can go out and feed them fast food 3 times a day. I've been through 4 pregnancies. I could smoke through all of them, and yet I can't go to a farmer near me and purchase this amazing, healthful, nutrient-dense, fresh milk.
Cows. Come on, cows. Come on, girls. Let's go. Hey, you cows. I'm Steve, and this is Barb Smith. We live in on about 150 acres on a ridge overlooking Seneca Lake, which is one of the Finger Lakes in central New York. We have about 30 cows, and we milk 9 of them. We have 2 draft horses, about 10 chickens.
2 pigs.
2 pigs.
And 9 kids.
And 9 kids, yeah. We're raising 9 kids. We decided to form a community-supported dairy where we would have a small herd of cows and milk it, and then distribute that milk to the members of this group. We did that, and we had 100 members or so, but Ag and Markets did not like that. They came and inspected us with several warrants. They tried to get us for contempt of court. They did several court actions to stop us from milking cows and distributing milk privately to members of our community-supported dairy.
The state of New York started to escalate enforcement actions against the Smiths. First, they would send in inspectors to the Smiths farm and say, you need a permit for what you're doing, and the Smiths would say, no, we don't need a permit. The Department of Ag and Markets would then levy administrative fines against the Smiths. The Department of Ag and Markets would then go in and try to execute a search warrant against the Smiths. Ag and Markets would confiscate some dairy products and order it to be destroyed. So they escalated these enforcement actions against the Smiths over the course of about a year.
Ag and Markets is the Department of Agriculture and Markets in New York State. That's what they call it. It's a different name in each state. And theoretically, I looked a little bit through the history of Ag and Markets, and theoretically they were established to support farmers so the agricultural products could get to markets and do anything they could to further that. Obviously, that's not what they're doing. the ag and markets kept saying, we have to inspect one more time, we have to. And so finally Gary thought, well, all right, we'll give them one more inspection. They came with the director of milk control, the assistant director, and our inspector, and they all came and pretended they were just going to do an inspection, and then they did a seizure.
The cooler that was seized and labeled, we had a few shelves full of yogurt in here at the time, and I don't think they had any legal way to ban us from making raw milk yogurt other than to go through this inspection and say that it was unfit for human consumption. In their estimation, this place was so filthy that food fit for human consumption could not be made here, so they condemned the lot. They condemned about 5 gallons of milk and they had this fancy red seizure notice. I can still see where it was taped on here. And they taped it across the handlebars so that we couldn't open the cooler without breaking their seal.
So they took all of our yogurt and milk that they locked into the cooler with these locks saying we couldn't touch it and all that.
The only farm crop that's regulated more than raw milk is marijuana. And it just seems ridiculous.
It was very hard for the family. The kids were terrified. They were scared for a long time of someone else coming, because even though we tried not to act too paranoid, we had to talk about things like, next time they come, what are we going to do?
In most of the states that allow farmers to sell raw dairy direct from the farm, like places like Pennsylvania and New York State, they can only sell milk. And the reason that they can't sell butter and cream and cheeses and so forth is that those are considered to be processed foods. And the more processing that's done in the view of the agriculture authorities, the more chance there is for contamination.
Throughout the making of this film, I tried to contact numerous government officials to give the other side of the story. I decided to travel to Albany, New York, to confront the State Department of Ag and Markets to discuss the Smith case.
You came unannounced.
If I come back,
we can make an appointment, but one of the things is that we have to get through these court cases in order to talk about these issues.
But their case is closed.
It is not closed. They have the opportunity to appeal, which I was just informed of when I just went to our attorneys and said, hey, they're asking about this. I just want to make sure, what can we say? Because we are looking into the question that you asked on the email about why. But the why digs up. I mean, this is a law from 1938. So the law is in place. You asked about why.
Right.
Why? Okay, good question. Legislative history, why did this law even pass in 1938? Those are the things we're looking into that question for you.
Okay.
But that was also part of the court case, which they can appeal.
All right. What about if we didn't address that issue at all and just address the issue of the yogurt and the cream?
That was part of the court case. That was part of the court case.
So even
though... I can't talk about that today.
Even though it's just general policy, like it's just your policy.
But it relates to the court case.
People from the government don't really want to talk for some reason, which bums me out because I think that if you feel strongly enough to shut down a farm, that you should be able to talk about it.
The Department of Agriculture and Markets here in New York does allow the sale of raw milk. We're one of 28 states, I believe, that allow the sale of raw milk at our farms with certain protections in place in order to protect both consumer and the producer. And so that means strict regulations and requirements on behalf of the producer, limited sales, and those are things that we feel strike a balance in between protecting both producer and consumer. And so we are very open to communication with our producers about the challenges and opportunities of selling raw milk here in New York State. We will continue to do those, to have those conversations once this litigation is closed.
As an attorney and a former government employee, I need to point out, I'm scratching my head trying to figure out, why is this so important to the government? Why are they stamping down on, the little guy? Why don't they go after the foods that are inherently dangerous? So to me, that's the $64,000 question, is what's motivating these governmental officials to crack down on small family farms? Are they being financed by big agribusiness? Are they being financed by the dairy industry? What's causing all this? Do these government officials come from big agribusiness companies and then go into government?
Because we live near Ithaca and Cornell is the big employer down there, a majority of our members are somehow connected with Cornell. A lot of them are in the sciences. These are all very educated people who, they're not people who don't know the difference between raw milk and pasteurized. They're making very deliberate decisions to drink raw milk. So it's kind of funny because I think about taking them all to the judge and saying, would you all stand up and introduce yourselves?
And that case is still on appeal, and we hope that some judge will be able to decide that this is a legal private enterprise.